Hey, all cinephile Mike, your friendly neighborhood cinephile is here, and this is episode 10 of Oscar Rewind 2024 edition. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to my bi weekly series of videos where I revisit the films that reflect the work of this past year's Oscar winners and the nominees. My hope is that you will discover a new, older favorite, or maybe have a chance to revisit one of those older films that you haven't seen in a while. I'll be discussing the film's box office history, their award season run, and as always, the reviews will be spoiler free. So, for today on day 10, this week, as I promised, was a pair of films best described as quirky. And today is Sony Pictures' Bottle Rocket. Released in 1996, the film was written by Owen Wilson and Wes Anderson and directed by Anderson. Now, during the film's theatrical run, as per Box Office Mojo, the film only shows a very small domestic, which makes up its worldwide box office take, as it did not have any international information shared. So it made a total of $560,069. As per Rotten Tomatoes, this film has a little bit more space between its ratings. The film sits with a critical rating of 86% and an audience score of 79%. So, let's talk about Bottle Rocket. Bottle Rocket lands on this year's Rewind season because of its co writer and director, Wes Anderson, a longtime Oscar darling who, up to and including this year, has a total of 8 nominations. And this year's eighth nomination for Best Live Action Short for the wonderful story of Henry Sugar finally gave him his first win 22 years after his first nomination and almost 30 years after his directorial debut, which was Bottle Rocket, a feature film based on a short film that he co wrote with Wilson and directed 3 years prior. So fitting that the two films that I looked at this week, the other being Napoleon Dynamite, had a similar journey. Unlike Napoleon Dynamite, though, Bottle Rocket did not have much award season recognition, but it did win one big award at the MTV Movie Awards, which is where Napoleon Dynamite had its most success. At the MTV Awards, Anderson was awarded Best New Filmmaker. And while I don't track these, it is worth mentioning that it won a special award for debut of the year that Anderson shared with his co writer and star Owen Wilson and Wilson's brother Luke at the Lone Star Film and Television Awards. So, what is Bottle Rocket about? Well, it's a story of friendship and thievery. Two best friends, Dignan, played by Owen Wilson, and Anthony, played by his brother Luke Wilson. Although in the film they are friends, not brothers. Dignan has one goal. He wants to pull off a heist within the team of Mr. Henry, played by James Caan, a landscaper Dignan once worked for, who is also a part time criminal. To do the smaller jobs in order to get Mr. Henry's invitation and attention, he needs a good team. And the main member is going to be his bestie, Anthony, who is currently staying at a voluntary psychiatric unit. However, the voluntary part is not very clear to Dignan, so he comes up with a very large plan to help his friend break out. Once he has Anthony, he brings in another friend, Bob Mapplethorpe, played by Robert Musgrave, to be the getaway driver because he is the friend with the car. Now that he has his team, he can enact the parts this very specific and elaborate plan that in total, for greatest success to fully maximize, will take 75 years. The team will then begin their first heist that won't be without its hiccups, and ultimately will land the team hiding out at an out of the way motel, which will lead to complications that start to drive some wedges into the team. One of this is a maid played by Lumi Cavazos named Inez, who captures Anthony's heart and pulls him away from the focus of the criminal life Dignan wants. And the other is without spoiling too much, a small marijuana based problem that will cause Bob to have a question of loyalty to his teammates or to his brother, who he's not too fond of. And through a series of events, Bob will bail, and Anthony and Dignan will have to determine next steps, which will cause even more fractures and drift these two friends apart until, without too much spoiling, we'll bring all of them back together, aha, underneath Mr. Henry. What will come from this misadventure? Well, I'll end the summary there. Now, Bottle Rocket is an interesting film. Although I put it on knowing that I was about to watch a Wes Anderson film, and I hadn't seen this one before reviewing it for this season, I almost forgot that it was a film of his until his name popped up in the credits. Anderson's film, from Rushmore, even the Royal Tenenbaums on, have very specific tone and style that has a very almost like it's a live theater performance and presentational element as opposed to a realistic film. Bottle Rocket is the latter. His first film is as realistic a film as we've ever seen Anderson make. There's no fourth wall breaks. There's no narration necessarily about what we have seen or what we're going to see. No act breaks. It's a straightforward narrative film. The closest we see to the style that we have seen Anderson adapt is the very articulate and detailed way Wilson lays out his 75-year plan as illustrated in his notebook with graphics and arrows, and that's the part that screams Anderson. Not that this is necessarily a bad thing, but unfortunately it doesn't fully land. The whole premise behind the film is a bit absurd. I mean, the actors are all decent and they do what they can, but it almost feels like there are two different films here, and neither one gets the full treatment because we have this quick 90-minute runtime, and so we have the heist film about the thieves, and you can even incorporate Anthony's side plot with the love angle. It works. The parts with Bob don't really seem to fit, and the jumps, it's a little bit fractured. Doesn't gel. Visually, that is where I will say for a realistic narrative film, visually the film is nice to watch at. Again, not Anderson's Joey constructed presentation that looks like he's getting ready for a play, but the realistic settings they use at the motel, a couple of the locations where they pull the heists, the different houses where they shot at. So they really show us, the cities proper, and also the countryside of Arizona beautifully. So visually, it's nice to look at if structurally the story doesn't land. The chemistry between all of the performers works, and that is really what does make you invest in the film to a certain extent. The Wilson brothers do much of the same shtick that they always have, and given that this was their first film, it's done them well for almost, these past 30 years. Cavazos and Musgrave as Inez and Bob, again, they do well with what they have, but I feel because of the plot lines and the story they're trying to tell, they get cut a little bit short. So I'm a little more on the lower end than the critics and the audience here. For me, out of 5 stars, Bottle Rocket gets a 3. Maybe if I had seen this earlier before I became to know what Anderson is, maybe I'd go a little higher or appreciate it more. And while there are some hints of his would be style, it doesn't match. Although maybe the score wouldn't go that much higher because, again, structurally the film doesn't fully work. While it's quirky, I will let you be the judge. To each their own. For me, again, it's a 3 out of 5. There are many Anderson fans out there. Maybe you have seen this. The film has received a cult status since its inception. So there you have it. Now, if you would like to see Bottle Rocket, if you haven't caught it yet, or you're wondering, maybe I should go revisit this one, you have 2 options. It is streaming for free on Pluto TV, or if you have a subscription to MGM Plus, it is also streaming there. So there you have it. I hope everyone is enjoying Oscar Rewind. Is there a film that you're hoping I get to this season? Is there a nominee or a winner that you're like, they did this film and I would really love to hear you talk about it? You got to let me know in those comments. Post on social media, send me a DM, interact with me. Let's talk movies. That's what it's about. You never know. I may say, hey, that's your favorite film? Why don't you come and review it with me? We'll make plans. You can follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all forms of social media and on Letterboxd. Let's go. Let's talk movies. You know you want to. Happy watching, everyone. But until next time, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.